What's up everyone, my name is Josh and this is Josh Unboxed, and welcome back to another video. And today I kind of want to talk about the value in BGS graded cards. In particular, the BGS 9.5s and the BGS 9s when compared to their counterparts at PSA, like a PSA 10 or a PSA 9. Now, we all know that when you compare a PSA 10 and a BGS 9.5, and in terms of their prices, in terms of the resale prices on the secondary hand market, then you see that PSA 10 sells for a lot more than the BGS 9.5. And you can look at, BGS 9s versus PSA 9s, and I'm pretty sure the price difference between those two are pretty large as well. It's just that so many people hold so much value in a PSA 10 that the value of a BGS 9.5 is lower when both cards are considered gem mint. Now, what I'm going to look at is just basically just the card condition in and of itself. Rather than looking at the number grade 10 versus 9.5, both these cards are labeled as gem mint. Now, if you want to look strictly at the condition of the card and you're buying the card, not the grade, then both cards are considered gem mint. The same thing along the lines of a PSA 9 versus a BGS 9, both cards are considered mint. Based on the sole opinion of the grader, that card is considered, in very, very good condition. And the price difference, the price disparity between the two is at a point where it's like, why pay the extra for a PSA 10 when you can get a BGS 9.5 for a lower price and a card that is in almost similar condition in terms of gem mint? Now, we know that the difference between a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 can sometimes be very, very minimal. With the lack of subgrades at PSA, you don't know what causes your card to get a 9, what causes your card to get a 10. It's really up to the grader, and depending on the grader, some graders can have a good day, some graders can be having a bad day, and because of that, it makes a difference between a 9 and a 10. We've seen cards that are slabbed as PSA 10s that have some issues on it that we wonder why wasn't it graded a 9, and then we see some 9s with no issues on it, and we don't know why it's graded a 10. And mainly it's because everything is subjective to the person who's grading it, and that's always going to be a constant factor when it's done by the human eye. We're all humans, we all make mistakes, we all have our own opinions, so everything is always subjective. Now, even with BGS, it's all subjective to the grader who's grading it, and that's where the difference of subgrades come into play. What determines what's a 9.5 corner versus a 9 corner? What determines a 10 corner versus a 9.5 corner? It's all subjective to the person who's grading it. And what I'm looking at is that there's a lot of value to be had with those BGS slabs, because the price difference between a BGS 9.5 and a PSA 10 is huge. You can go with the idea of, let me buy this BGS 9.5 card because it's X amount of dollars cheaper than a PSA 10, and use the remainder of the money that I would have spent on a PSA 10 on another card that I want in my collection. Now, this is more about looking along the lines of buying a card that you really like in the best condition possible, without any inkling or any indication or any thought of the whole entire resale value of the card. Because I know that the value that's put upon PSA cards within the past year and a half with this big boom in the hobby is big, and everyone's looking for PSA 10s because that brings more money. And with this big influx of people coming into the hobby from the past year, a lot of people with it who've jumped back onto the hobby or who are jumping into the hobby are using it as a means of generating profit. So PSA 10s giving you the most profit. But what most people fail to realize, that there was a point in time when BGS was the #1 grading company, especially when it came to modern cards. So when I jumped back into the hobby for the very first time from being away from the 90s, I jumped back in around 2012, 13, 14, and at that time, BGS cards were the more sought after slabs. Everybody loved the subgrades, true gem cards, 9.5s, the elusive BGS 10s, the pristine 10s. A lot of people really graded their modern cards, or at that time, what was considered ultra modern, to BGS. And that's why you see these rare cards that are selling for high dollars, breaking records, graded in BGS slabs, because most people graded those cards in BGS slabs. The thought process back then was that, oh yeah, your vintage cards, are probably better to be graded by PSA and your modern cards were better to be graded by BGS. And then all of a sudden we come here and PSA has pushed way ahead of everybody else, and they outsell BGS in terms of resale value on the secondhand market. Now, my current focus is basically buying cards that I like, buying cards in the best condition possible. If I do decide to buy graded cards, sure, I look at PSA and I like PSA slabs. I like the consistency, I like the look, I like the set registry. There's a whole bunch of reasons for me to like PSA, aside from the resale value of what it sells for. But there is value still to be had in BGS slabs. Now, personally, for myself, I love submitting my cards to PSA because I like the consistency, I like the look of their slabs, I like the low profile slab look. You know, I like that uniformity, but it doesn't mean that I'm not interested in buying BGS slabs. I do buy BGS slabs because I do feel like there's some value to be had in there because the price difference is so huge. And if you're just looking at buying the card and not the grade, consider buying the category of the grade, gem mint versus gem mint and mint versus mint. Because that's the condition of the card. You know, you'll have a lot of collectors saying buy the card, not the grade, right? You want to look at the card. So that, I think that's very, very important. You know, gem mint versus gem mint, you want to look at the condition of the card itself in the slab and find out what the price difference is between the two. The price discrepancy between PSA and BGS is similar to like brand name versus generic. It's brand name recognition for PSA that pushes that value up. You know, it's like you go to the grocery store, you see Fruit Loops versus Fruit Circles, you know, something like that. I don't know what the name is of any generic brand, but most people will pay the extra to get that brand name of Fruit Loops. You know, using cereal, for example, or, you know, any type of thing that you go out in the store for and you buy brand name stuff. You know, if you buy the brand name of Supreme clothing, people will pay the extra for that. Anything else that has like brand name recognition, people will pay extra for that because of the brand name. A lot of people will talk about quality and stuff like that, but you know, quality is, when it comes to graded cards, and grading is very, very subjective to the person who's doing it. You know, it's not made by a manufacturing plant. The grades are assessed by a human eye, and when you have that level of subjectivity to it, what constitutes as a PSA 10 versus a PSA 9, a BGS 9.5 versus a BGS 9, you know, it really is dependent on the person who's grading. I do feel that there is a lot of value to be had with BGS slabs. It's just that a lot of people kind of scoff at the notion of a BGS slab because when they compare it to a PSA 10, most people like nowadays will say, give me a PSA 10 over a BGS 9.5, and a lot of people are thinking about resale value down later in the line rather than thinking about the card itself. Some people, you know, will like PSA 10s because of, you know, they are loyal to the brand, and I totally get that. But what I want to do is just try to find value in the cards within my collection itself. So this is more from a lens of a collecting standpoint on buying the card, not the grade, not so much in terms of an investment standpoint to sell later on down the line. But if you buy nice cards and you buy cards that have generated interest and demand and that are rare, regardless of the slabs, it doesn't matter if it's a BGS or if it's a PSA, if it's a rare card, people are going to want that card. I mean, in terms of investment standpoint, you know, you can't go wrong if you buy a BGS slab versus a PSA slab card, especially if you're dealing with rare cards. So yeah, these are just my thoughts, my opinions. If you agree or disagree, sound off in the comments below. If you found some value in this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Please consider subscribing. And with that being said, my name is Josh, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.